Cuckoo Bird. Meet the cuckoo, nature's ultimate con artist and the textbook example of how evolution can turn a species into a professional freeloaders. But before we get into their scams, let me tell you about the sparrowhawk first. These guys are elite predators that hunt small birds with terrifying speed. Imagine you're just minding your business, grabbing a quick bite to eat, and you look up to see a sparrowhawk diving at you 1 second later, and it's game over. Because of this, the moment small birds spot a sparrowhawk in the distance, they scatter immediately just to stay alive. And that is exactly where the cuckoo's plan begins. Over millions of years, some cuckoo species have evolved plumage that looks identical to a sparrowhawk. When those small birds see a cuckoo coming, they don't have time to second guess. They just run for their lives. With the coast clear, the cuckoo sneaks into the nest, swallows one of the original eggs, lays her own, and takes off. When the owners return, they have no idea they've been hit. The cuckoo has mastered the art of mimicry, laying eggs that look exactly like the host's, but with a much thicker shell that's nearly impossible to break. But the real horror starts when the egg hatches. The cuckoo chick usually arrives a day or two earlier than its nestmates, just enough time to carry out a cold-blooded assassination. The moment it's out, the newborn cuckoo uses its back to hoist every other egg out of the nest, watching them smash on the ground. Even if some chicks have already hatched, they get pushed out too until the cuckoo is the only one left. Since cuckoos are notoriously ravenous, the chick has one more weapon in its arsenal. It can mimic the frantic, high-pitched cries of an entire brood of hungry chicks all at once. This triggers a super instinct in the foster parents, who work themselves to exhaustion to feed this single monster. Before long, the cuckoo chick grows to be 3 or 4 times the size of its mother before flying off to repeat the cycle. You might wonder why the parents don't realize this giant bird isn't theirs. Well, it's an evolutionary arms race. Some birds have learned to spot fakes and will toss the cuckoo egg out or even abandon the nest. But the cuckoo counters this by evolving even more convincing counterfeits. However, there's a darker reason known as the mafia hypothesis. Scientists have found that mother cuckoos don't just disappear, they stay nearby and watch. If the host parents reject her egg, she'll return and move in like a mob boss ransacking the entire nest. The message is clear. Either you raise my kid or I destroy everything you have. To stay safe, these small birds are often forced to comply. Interestingly, not all cuckoos are like this. Less than half of the species are brood parasites. The rest build nests and raise their own young like normal birds. But the ones that do choose the life of crime are specialists. If a cuckoo lineage targets sparrows, they will lay eggs that are a perfect, indistinguishable match for sparrow eggs every single time. Cuckoo catfish. Most fish usually just scatter their eggs in the water and hope for the best, or stick them to leaves and hide them in nests. But for these species, the survival rate is abysmal because predators are everywhere. To counter this, some fish have evolved a technique called mouth brooding, literally carrying the eggs inside their mouths until the babies are big enough to survive. The cichlid fish in Africa's Lake Tanganyika is a master of this method. During mating season, the female cichlid releases pheromones to attract males. She'll lay her eggs on the lake floor, the male fertilizes them, and she immediately scoops them all up into her mouth for safekeeping. But this process is nowhere near as peaceful as it sounds. You see, Lake Tanganyika is also home to the cuckoo catfish, and they didn't get that name by accident. The moment a female cichlid releases those pheromones, the cuckoo catfish picks up the scent with pinpoint accuracy. It lurks in the shadows, waiting for the exact moment the eggs are fertilized. Then, it strikes with lightning speed. It rushes in, gobbles up some cichlid eggs, and replaces them with its own eggs, fertilizing them on the fly. The female cichlid, panicked by the intruder eating her offspring, frantically scoops up everything, unknowingly taking the catfish's Trojan horse eggs into her mouth. Just like the cuckoo bird, these catfish eggs hatch 1 or 2 days earlier than the hosts. And the moment they emerge, they're already armed with specialized teeth. Their sole mission? To pierce the cichlid eggs and devour every single one of them inside the mother's mouth. By the time the cichlid mother finally opens her mouth to release her babies, the only thing that swims out is a swarm of cuckoo catfish. But it's not always a guaranteed win for the catfish. Scientists have shown that cichlids that have been tricked before become much better at sensing intruders. They'll try to spit out the fake eggs, though in the confusion, they sometimes accidentally spit out their own children, a heavy price to pay for security. The cuckoo catfish has one last trick, though. Their eggs are incredibly tough, meaning even if they're spat out, they can still survive and hatch on the lake floor. Since cichlid mothers periodically release their young to let them feed and then scoop them back up at the first sign of danger, the baby catfish will often mingle with the cichlid fry and sneak back into the mother's mouth. Even if they don't eat the other babies this time, the inside of that mouth is still the safest place to be. Cuckoo wasps. We've seen cuckoo birds and cuckoo fish, and now it's time for the cuckoo wasp. This insect is just as much of a parasite as the others, but with a few unique twists. There are many species of cuckoo wasps, but they all share one striking feature: a brilliant, iridescent blue body that's incredibly hard, and armor plating that plays a crucial role in their survival strategy. Their victims are many, but let's look at the European beewolf as a prime example. Unlike honeybees, the species targeted by cuckoo wasps usually build their nests in dirt walls, under roofs, or by digging tunnels underground. The beewolf, in particular, is a master excavator. A mother beewolf will dig a tunnel up to a meter deep, then head out to hunt honeybees. She paralyzes them and drags them back to the tunnel, usually 1 to 6 bees. Then she digs a side chamber, stashes the bee carcasses inside, lays a single egg on top of them, and seals the entrance. From that moment on, her job is done. When the larva hatches, it has a ready-made buffet of honeybees to fuel its growth. That's the plan anyway. But the cuckoo wasp has other ideas. This wasp has zero interest in parenting. In fact, it has even lost the ability to sting for defense. Instead, its stinger has evolved into a specialized tube specifically for laying eggs. The cuckoo wasp lurks near the beewolf's tunnel, waiting for its moment. It has two main tactics. First, the moment the beewolf brings a fresh kill home, the cuckoo wasp might jump out, land on the carcass, and lay an egg right then and there. The second tactic is more stealthy. It waits for the beewolf to head back out for another hunt, then slips into the tunnel to deposit its egg before vanishing. If the entrance is already sealed, the cuckoo wasp is even evolved to break through the seal, lay its egg, and then patch the hole back up so perfectly the homeowner never suspects a thing. Occasionally, the cuckoo wasp gets caught red-handed. This is where that rock-hard armor comes in. It tucks itself into a tight ball, turning into an impenetrable sphere. The beewolf's stinger can't pierce the armor, and eventually the frustrated host either ignores it or tosses it out of the nest. But by then, the mission is usually already accomplished. Unaware that her food stores have been compromised, the beewolf finishes her nest and leaves. Once again, the parasite's egg hatches much faster than the host's. The cuckoo larva devours all the stored food, and if it's still hungry, it'll eat the beewolf larva too. But the cuckoo wasp has one more high-tech weapon. Since these tunnels are pitch black, beewolves rely on scent rather than sight to identify intruders. To counter this, the cuckoo wasp can actually synthesize a chemical scent that perfectly mimics the beewolf's own odor. It's a multi-million-year arms race. The cuckoo wasp keeps thickening its armor and perfecting its chemical disguise, while the beewolf constantly shifts its scent and learns to detect even the tiniest accent in the smells around its home. Cuckoo bumblebees. I promise, this is the last cuckoo of the video. I don't want you guys getting a parasite overdose, but I saved the most sinister for last. This thing is like the final boss of a villain origin story. Normally, bumblebees are the hard workers of the insect world. They fly from flower to flower, gathering nectar and pollen, mixing them into a sticky paste to carry back in the pollen baskets on their hind legs to feed their larvae. Their colonies are well-oiled machines with a queen and a dedicated army of workers. Then there's the cuckoo bumblebee. It has evolved over millions of years into a terrifying specialist. First off, it's a lone wolf. No colony, no workers. It doesn't even have pollen baskets on its legs. Why? Because it has no intention of working. When it hits a flower, it drinks just enough nectar to fuel its own body. It's not interested in grocery shopping for the kids. It's got a much darker plan for that. A cuckoo bumblebee wakes up from hibernation a bit later than other bees, specifically waiting until the target colony is already thriving with workers. It has evolved to produce almost zero pheromones, allowing it to slip into a nest like a ghost without triggering any alarms. But it doesn't attack right away. It hides in the shadows of the nest for days, letting the host's scent rub off on its body. It'll even groom the workers to make sure it smells like family. Once the disguise is perfect, the cuckoo bumblebee heads straight for the queen. Since this parasite gave up honest labor millions of years ago, all its evolutionary energy went into weaponry and armor. It has razor-sharp jaws designed to tear the queen apart, and a larger stinger packed with more venom to deliver a lethal neurotoxin. Even if the queen doesn't die instantly, the cuckoo will use her dying body as a grim display of power to cow any workers thinking of resisting. Combined with its rock-hard exoskeleton, the cuckoo almost always wins. Once the throne is hers, she releases a powerful chemical cocktail to brainwash the workers into thinking she's their rightful queen. Driven by pheromones and fear, the workers spend their lives foraging for this usurper. Meanwhile, the cuckoo queen pumps out eggs while releasing another chemical that suppresses the workers' own ability to reproduce. The result? A massive army of nannies ready to raise her young. But here's the catch. The cuckoo doesn't produce workers, only fertile males and females. As her offspring grow, the original worker force eventually grows old and dies off, leaving the nest a ghost town. The young cuckoos fly out to find mates. The males die after mating, and the fertilized females find a spot to hibernate, ready to restart the cycle of terror next year. But believe it or not, even this master manipulator gets a taste of its own medicine. Cuckoo bumblebees have an incredibly sensitive sense of smell. They can track a single chemical trail left by a passing bee to find the perfect nest. Not too small, or there's no one to do the chores. Not too big, or she might get overwhelmed. It's her greatest weapon. Yet, a type of orchid called the ophrys has turned this weapon against them. This flower mimicry is next level. It secretes a pheromone so potent it smells exactly like a female bee, and its petals even have the same fuzzy texture. When a male cuckoo bee shows up looking for love, he ends up mating with the flower. Pollen sticks to his body and he carries it off to the next orchid, getting tricked into being a free courier. Doesn't it make you wonder, how on earth did a flower learn to look and smell exactly like a bee just to hitch a ride? Anyway, that's the end of our cuckoo saga. What do you think of these biological scammers? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.